to the west, it's the order we shout. Mic check, lights flash, game time, stay ready. 2 vets in the zone, keep the pressure real heavy. Big hits, big plays, yeah, we breaking it down. Truth rings in your speakers, every word is the crown. From the north side hustle to that southern flame. Midwest grind, west coast of the game. Sports talk kings, yeah, we wear that crown. Turn it up, let them know it's about to go down. Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. True 5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chaser, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout.
It's about to go down.
Yes. You are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports as Ordered.
Yeah, you hear it. You hear it.
By the one and only, the world-renowned, the world-famous, cool, calm, and collected. He goes by the name of Mr. Logical, and he wants y'all to know that he was born in Texas, raised in VA. He represents everything New Jerusalem. When we were off camera, he told me that Outkast can't rock a party like Naughty by Nature. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
Down here in the Alamo, it is I, the unorthodox statistician, going left so much you thought I was southpaw. Even Deontay Wilder can't see this. I do believe in Joe Hendry. I am 2-5. And we got a lot of business to get to. So, Mr. Logical, we're going to take it straight from the top. So, yesterday, or actually, let me back up. 2 days ago, I was talking to our hot box brethren, and, we were just playing around, and I was like, hey, you know what? Why don't Green Bay go after Micah Parsons? And then I got on Twitter, and I saw some rumors like, hey, Green Bay about to go after Micah Parsons. And I'm like, nah, like, whatever. Like, that's just fan fiction, whatever the case. Then Mike Irvin was on ESPN. He wasn't doggy style. You know what I'm saying? But he was on there, and he was like, literally like, I guarantee you Micah Parsons ain't getting traded. Not even 5 minutes later. Breaking news.
That's why he was on NFL Live, yeah.
Yeah. So, Mr. Logical, I got 2 questions for you.
All right.
1, do you like Dallas making this trade? And 2, what does it mean for the NFC?
All right, so it's very akin to the Luka trade, where I'm not just going to scream like, Jerry's terrible, whatever. There's a benefit to Dallas trading them because they did get an interior defensive lineman and they got 2 first-round picks. So that's the silver lining. You still can – you didn't lose a guy. You didn't lose the capability on that side of the ball completely. Yes, you don't have a dynamic outside rusher, but with another interior guy that can force double teams, that can press the pocket, now you can turn a guy who might have been a 5-sack guy into 7.5 because Kenny could just push up the middle. The problem I see for Dallas is that Jerry got in his own way and he let pride and ego dictate this entire process. Like I said before, Jerry gets in the room with these players and changes his whole persona from general manager of the team who drafted this guy who wants this team to win. I'm the owner of the team to I want to win this negotiation with the guy across the table from me across my giant desk. And just completely forgets the fact that it's like, this is a human being that you selected to play football at your organization. It's not an op. Like, you're not trying to make a land deal with somebody in Texas that doesn't want you to get the deal. Now you got to fight to get more space to get another practice facility for the Cowboys. You're trying to secure your top young player for your team, and he treats it like, nah, this is war. I don't care who's on the other side of that desk. This is oak. I got this tree from Noah's Ark to make this desk. I'm Jerry Jones. My team's worth $5 billion. I made all this money in oil. Nobody's going to out-negotiate me. And he just kind of gets tunnel vision and realize, like, yo, dog, you talk to a 26-year-old who wants to stay on your team. it's not someone who wants to take from you. So I think that's the part that really damages. As far as what it does to the NFC, I gotta see if Green Bay can capitalize on having him on the team.
You can't
do that.
You gotta react, man.
Be like, oh, Green Bay is gonna win the Super Bowl. It's like so much shit has to happen for you to win the Super Bowl. Hell, we talked about Philly. Philly started out like 3-2 last year and then went on a tear. So I think the NFC North is like, God damn it. Jared Goff is like, really? I already got these little hands and I got to worry about another pass rusher. Detroit's probably thinking like, yo, we probably could have got him. But granted, they're going to have to pay Aiden Hutchinson here pretty soon. But it's like, maybe we could have made a move. But Minnesota's probably thinking like, now we got this young quarterback who has to look across every week. Now he has Micah Parsons 1 week. Then he has Aiden Hutchinson the next week. So it's just
Josh Sweat the next week.
Josh Sweat, like the Chicago defense is like, so I think it made a big difference in the NFC North, but I don't think that it just, propelled Green Bay to the top. It did hurt Dallas a little bit because it does seem like these contract negotiations are going to be a problem. And that's going to be the huge thing for them is like, can you trust Jerry to make the moves, or is it going to be an internal struggle between Jerry and Steven? Like, yo, man, your pride cost us a young star, and you got a great defensive player between, but like that's going to cost some future negotiations. People are going to want to trust them, or people are going to just kind of try to fleece Dallas out of their next star.
Yeah. So as I grab my liquid death, and you out there liking, reviewing, subscribing, rating, sharing, and doing all those free things for us, that's for you. So look, Dallas, I'm in a weird position, right? Because I'm a Washington fan.
Pause.
So Dallas is the enemy. And I was trying to think about how I feel about this, and then I came up with an answer. The problem with Dallas is that they just don't have vision. Like everything is reactionary. Everything is winning the press. Everything is having the camera in your face.
But that's the thing. That's the vision. The vision is winning things that aren't football related.
Right. So what I mean by that is if you were willing or had any inkling that you might trade Micah Parsons at some point, and maybe you weren't thinking about this a year ago, but why give Dak the contract? That's first and foremost.
I keep forgetting the timeline. Did Dak get a contract before last season started or 2 years ago?
It was before the last season started.
So then he paid CeeDee Lamb, and then he paid CeeDee Lamb in season. The highest, like okay.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So the way that I'm looking at this, because I was having these conversations about Terry McLaurin, and people were saying, your best receiver, he's your franchise. Why would you not give him the money? And I was like, well, because in a couple of years when Jaden Daniels becomes eligible for his $55 million or whatever we doing at that time, Terry McLaurin's going to be like 33, 34 at that time. And, what are you going to do with that old receiver? So that's why I said what I said, because when I look at Dallas, it's like, okay, why'd you give Dak 60? Because it was already going to cause issues as far as limiting to some degree what you could put around the team as far as from a whole view. Like you still got Diggs, who I think is going to be next out the door. You still got DeVon Bland. You still got players on your roster, but at some point those players got to go to make room for these contracts. And that's what Green Bay is going to deal with, because right now after this deal, Micah and Jordan Love are the highest duo in the league. Like Joe Burrow and Chase
was at $99 million.
They were at 95. They were at $95 million. And now, what up, Mike? You know what I'm saying? And now you got, Jordan Love and Micah at 102. You know what I mean? And you still need, depending on how this goes with Matthew Golden, you still need that number one receiver. Jair Alexander's gone. So, your secondary needs some retooling that you're probably not going to be able to do unless you do it through the draft. So back to Dallas, with Micah Parsons, there was hope, and I think a lot of people thought that this wouldn't happen, that they wouldn't get to the point of trade. Like we saw this with Dak. We saw CD play out during the season.
But Dak didn't say anything about a trade. And there was nowhere for Dak to go.
Oh, there were places
probably
to go.
could have been traded.
There were places to go. He could have went to the Raiders.
But I think the issue was the amount of money he wanted. He was only going to be able to get from Dallas.
Right, but if you're a free agent, it don't matter. Like you ain't going to sit out. So you're going to take, if that's what it's about, you would have just took the highest offer. You know what I mean? Whether that was 51, 57, whatever it would be. So from that standpoint, like Dak ended up getting hurt. So when you in a position like that, certain things like that tend to change your timelines a little bit because now you've lost a year. Dak's a year older. He's not old by any means, but just another year older. You got to start looking at the construction of your roster and where are we going to be in 2 years or whatever the case may be. So this is where you got to make
any of that crosses his mind.
I know that's what I'm saying. It should.
Dallas, but he's admitted it multiple times. Like anytime Dallas is in the news is good for me.
Yeah, the Colts would have been a good move. Yeah,
think about it. He has the argument that I bought this team. They were terrible. I made some hires. I made some draft picks. They were dominant for a certain part of a decade. We got 3 Super Bowls out of it. And we've been a steady, good team. They had that spat of mediocrity with Jason Garrett, where I think his record is like right at 500. But you had the T.O. show. You had Romo. Dallas is on TV all the time. The value of the team goes up. So when he opens that portfolio, 1 year, the team's worth $3.2 billion. Now it's 3.6. Now it's something around the lines of like probably if he was to sell that team, the Lakers just went for $10 billion.
Washington went for 6.
Washington went for 6. I think the Yankees could probably go for about 10 or 11. So he's probably thinking like the Cowboys. When I'm ready to get rid of this team, I'm getting $11 billion.
He ain't getting rid of the team. Life getting rid of him.
Well, whenever that happens, like, and if you think about it, you think about that scene of him in Landman. You would have thought, okay, Jerry's turned over. Like, oh, that was a very emotional scene. He's like, I just wanted to, work with my kids. Well, I'm pretty sure Steven was like, yo, dog, you got to pay him. Or they should have traded him before the draft. More teams would have been willing to move pieces around. You probably could have got a player and a couple of first-round draft picks this year from a team that was drafted in the top 15. Theoretically, Green Bay more than likely will be drafting somewhere around 26 or 27. We're assuming they're making the playoffs. They're going to have a good year. So they're somewhere between 26 and 27.
Well, and that's the other thing, right, is that we were talking to pre-draft about, hey, Carolina should try to call Pittsburgh and see what they could get for TJ Watt. We were talking about that before the draft started. So, little did we know that Micah would be on the market or, whatever the case may be.
I didn't think they would trade him in conference if they were going to trade him at all.
But as far as the NFC goes,
he would have been a Charger if I was there. I'm like, what if they play Dallas if Dallas miraculously makes the playoffs and they play Green Bay again?
Dak going to lose a leg.
And Micah's strip sack seals the game.
Well, that's the other thing too, that's kind of being, I don't want to say skipped over, but just not brought up as much. Micah Parsons went from like D Wade in his prime to Paul George all over the podcast. He was talking so much. He was bad talking Dak. Then he came out here preseason laying on the table and everything during the game and whatnot.
Yo, my man was done. I saw that. Somebody posted that on one of the sports groups I was in, and it said, man, he's out of here.
And see, so as far as Green Bay goes, I picked them to win the
Hold
North
on, Mike.
anyway.
Hold on, Mike. Hold on. Mr. Logical over here. Calm down. Y'all need to stop fronting and just face the fact that your owner botched this deal. He is an outstanding outside linebacker, defensive end, whatever you want to call him.
That does nothing during the playoffs.
The top young defensive end in the league, because considering Myles Garrett and TJ Watt a little older. So he's still an asset.
No, whenever
don't try to be dismissive of him now because he got traded. Like,
now, Mike's been saying this for like a year now. Mike been saying this for like a year.
Because the talk of trading him was for a year because this was going to happen. They paid Dak too much. They were going to pay CD. Like, I'll shout out to Nick Wright. Last year, he was talking about, I think Dallas should entertain the idea of trading Micah Parsons last year, before last season started, because he's like, you're not going to have enough to pay Dak, CD, and then whatever number Micah wants. He's going to want it to be the highest, and other guys were in line. So you have people, pundits on TV, that can see the writing on the wall. I don't know why Jerry thought he was going to be able to get him for the cheap, considering this is his first big contract extension. The first one him and his agent really gets to negotiate because of the way it's structured in the CBA for first-round draft picks and just subsequently all rookies for the most part, but definitely the first-round draft picks. It's locked in. So this is the first time you get to negotiate. He's not just going to take whatever.
Well, see, and that's the thing, right? Is that, you know, when I watch these playoff games, I could play Where's Waldo with Micah Parsons. And you know, but the question I was going to ask you, since you brought up the numbers, you know, so it sounds like Dallas offered him $40 million over 5 years, and Micah was only looking for 4 years. Green Bay ended up giving him. And Green Bay ended. Well, here's the question. So Green Bay ended up giving him 47 a year. So this is my question. So T.J. Watt got 41. Micah got 47. Are we getting to a point where we might start to see these other positions, the stars of these positions, getting quarterback type money or close to it?
If it works out, if Green Bay hoists the Lombardi Trophy, brings it home, as they say, you know, to Lambeau, then when Abdul Carter wants his money in 2 years, like this season, play out next season, plays his third season, if it worked for Green Bay, then either the Giants are going to pay him whatever that number is, or somebody else will. But it has to work. If TJ Watt can play 2 more years at the same rate, because I think was Pittsburgh's win percentage when he played is like 70% or something like that, 70, 80%. They're like on average like 8-2 in a 10-game window that he misses, something crazy like that. So if he can stay on the field and be productive, yeah. And then Myles Garrett
too.
Yeah, if Myles Garrett's performance pushes Cleveland to the top of the AFC North, then guys will start. It'll be collectively, a lot of guys are getting 40 to 45 million a year. But it has to work. I'm
interested to see what happens with Aiden. You brought it up earlier, Aiden Hutchinson, after this year. Like, how does he come back from the injury? You know, what kind of negotiating power does he have?
Well, the number starts at 4 years, 190.
That's where it starts. And
the thing with Dallas, that 5-year part, same thing happened with Dak. They want to be able to opt out and renegotiate a year earlier. Jerry doesn't want that. That's why he keeps offering these 5-year deals. And he thinks he's securing them by, like, I'm looking now for you. I'm giving you a 5-year contract. No, after the third year on my 4-year deal, we're going to have to come back to the table. So that means my performance for the next 3 years is going to dictate versus the next 4 to 5 years. Depends on like whenever you sign your contract extension.
And then, of course, I was thinking, because, that's what I do. And, they got these 2 first-round picks from Green Bay. You got Kenny Clark. So I was thinking about these first-round picks that they got. And this isn't the NBA, where you got to be top 3, you got to be top 5 to hope to get these generational talents or whatever it may be. In the NFL, you could get a star from anywhere, regardless of where you are in the first round. And hell, you don't even have to be in the first round. So you just give yourself more opportunities to get that next player, whoever that may be. But as I look at this down the road, it just speaks to a lack of vision. It speaks to pride is the sign of a foolish man. And now Micah Parsons has a chance to, have impact, and you remember a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about Green Bay, I talked about how Brett Favre won his Super Bowl at 27. Aaron Rodgers won his Super Bowl at 27. Jordan Love is 27 this year. Well, Brett Favre got Reggie White when he was 27. Aaron Rodgers got Charles Woodson.
Charles Woodson at 27.
And here you go. So, I mean, hey, the stars are aligned.
So Green Bay definitely has a vision. Draft quarterback, hold him for a couple of years, get rid of the old guy, bring in the young guy, let the young guy figure it out, make the move, and say, go for it. Yeah, yeah. Dallas wants to be on Netflix. They want to be on Peacock, but not on Sunday Night Football. They want to be on the documentary. Jerry wants to be on Landman. And it's like, you're already going to be talked about. You don't have to do anything reckless to like talk about it. It's like Beyonce doesn't have to go on somebody's podcast and talk shit about Whitney Houston to get attention. It's like, she's Beyonce. The Dallas Cowboys don't need to do extra stuff.
Nobody.
It's the Dallas Cowboys.
Nobody. But but that's the thing, right? Who were the Giants corners when they won those Super Bowls? That was Justin Tuck and O.C. Umenora.
Listen, if you make a quarterback throw the ball a half a second or almost a full second early, or he can't get to that next read and he has to let it go, it's a lot of tip passes, a lot of late throws, a lot of throws so it's.
And by no means do I think this gives Green Bay a Super Bowl or puts them in next to the Super Bowl. But what I was saying earlier was, hey, I think that Jordan Love is talented enough, and if they could get receiver play, they could be right there. You know what I mean?
Is Micah going to get 11? Does he have to pay for 11?
No, he said he's going to wear number 1. He's going to wear number 1.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But he got 136 guaranteed. So last question before we move on, Mr. Logical.
Yeah.
Now, I said Dallas ain't got no vision, right? 2-5 does.
What's the vision?
Hey, you got these 2 first-round picks. See what old Danny Jones is doing over there in the Midwest. They start off, say, 1-4, 1-5-ish or something along those lines. What's up, Jonathan Taylor?
I wouldn't use a first-round pick. That's
not third. Both of them, but I would use one, maybe.
That's the third. That's the third and the fifth.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, Indy's desperate. That's the third and the fifth. You're not giving up a first-round pick. I wouldn't. But you know how Dallas negotiates. I'm starting with the Randy Moss deal. Whatever Bill Belichick offered for Randy Moss and got him, that's what I'm starting. End season, your team's desperate. Hey, man, I got a third and a fifth for you.
Well, Green Bay gave up less than we gave up for Laramie Tunsil. You know what I mean? So you hear 2 first-round picks, and it sounds crazy, but
it's gonna be fucking 27. And I know you can get talent there, but it's they're not.
That's the good thing about Dallas. That's the one of the good things about Dallas is that they do tend to draft well. So having more cracks at the apple, can't hurt. Yeah, you just got to decide when you want to rebuild or when you want to,
But what's going to happen is they're going to need to move up to get Dak's replacement or somebody else because Pickens didn't work out. And Jerry is such a I want to win negotiator. People don't trade with him.
I don't know. We'll see. I think Dallas is going to be sitting pretty for a minute, not necessarily winning games that way, but, the next few years should be interesting. So, we're here tonight to talk about the AFC South. You know what I'm saying? One of the most pitiful divisions I've ever seen. Like the Indianapolis Colts right now are so bad with Daniel Jones starting at quarterback that if I was making betting lines in Vegas, I wouldn't even favor the Colts over the St. Louis Battlehawks. That's where we are with the Colts right now.
That might be a little much.
But here's the question, Mr. Logical. First question here.
I'm listening.
At the end of this season, is Anthony Richardson just going to have to go pack up?
Anthony Richardson, I think his athleticism, ironically, might have led to I don't want to say his demise. It's very early, but I think he got drafted too high because of the physical skill set. I think from what people have said about him in the building, that he's a great teammate, great character, great person. It's just when it boils down to it, NFL quarterbacks have to be able to, one, complete passes, throw the ball on time, and stay on the field. That's one of the positions. The drop off from the starting quarterback to the backup for almost every team is substantial. It's very rare that Joe Burrow goes down and Jake Browning steps up and they go like 5-4, 9. Like it just doesn't happen. You get a lot of Spencer Rattler is a starter right now in New Orleans. He's named a starter. The drop off for his backup is substantial, and he's not even one of the better starting quarterbacks. So if you think about what you're going to have to deal with in Indy, because you keep getting injured. So they brought in Daniel Jones, who has his injury history, but he tore like an ACL, so he has injury history, but Anthony Richardson just wasn't finishing games. Like he was getting knocked out of games all the time. Like I don't think he finished a game his rookie year. So he got knocked out of every single game. And then the last time he got knocked out, he was put on the IR for the rest of the season. So he didn't even finish a full game. So we talk about the lack of experience in college. I think he started 13 games. His first 4 or 5 NFL starts, he didn't finish the games. And then when he does play, like 55%, 52% completion, somewhere in that range, like you're just asking for someone to take your job.
Yeah, so, the difference between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson is we saw Daniel Jones have a competent season. That first year with Brian Daboll, it was like a renaissance going on in New York City. Well, I guess New Jersey to be technical. There was a renaissance going on. They made the playoffs, beat the Vikings. And then, from there, it's just been awful. The other difference between them is Anthony Richardson can actually hit the deep ball. The problem is that he can only hit the deep ball. And we'll get to that a little later. I got a funny stat about that. But, the division, the AFC South, is so bad, though. I mean, I'm not going to bang on Houston, but just look at there's not elite teams in that division, obviously. The good news is you could win the division at 9-8. The bad news is you could win the division at 9-8. So when I look at this division, there's so many questions about each team. And, usually you come into a football season and you do have questions. This quarterback doesn't have experience. How is he going to play? How the new free agents going to fit in? This team has a new coach. How's that going to look? So when you look at the AFC South, you got to figure, can Houston keep CJ Stroud upright? He got sacked 52 times last year. It's not a recipe for success. And of course, they traded Tunzel. They got new offensive linemen galore. So we're going to have to see. Joe Mixon is already hurt for the first couple of weeks. And we got to see what Nick Chubb has left. Jacksonville, brought in Liam Cohen as head coach. They're getting some players back from injury to include the franchise. But I got questions about Jacksonville. Like, can you run the ball consistently enough to keep the pressure off of that franchise quarterback? Then you look at Indianapolis. Nothing left to be said. We talked about that already. But at least the Colts went out in free agency. Duval. But at least the Colts went out in free agency and took care of what I felt has been their biggest weakness for at least the last 2 to 3 seasons, which was their defensive secondary. They went out and got Mooney Ward, Cam Bynum. Speaking of Green Bay, Mike, they brought in Corey Ballantyne. So to go along with Kenny Moore, he was the one player in their secondary that I did like. So the Colts have things going on for them that even if they just had somebody like a Sam Darnold, the Colts might be a fringe contender, with how good I think their defense will be. And then Tennessee, it's all about Cam Ward. What is he going to be? Is he going to be Caleb Williams? Is he going to be Jaden Daniels? Something in between? Can any other position do anything else on that roster? So I guess while we're there, let's get right to it. So, Mr. Logical.
Yeah.
Last year, I tried to ride the Titans wave.
Yeah, you were on that.
What I'm saying? I loved them so hard. And, they came out the first 2 weeks of the season lost both of those games, but I was encouraged. Like the game against Chicago, a couple turnovers, went, one score game.
Let's not glaze over the couple of turnovers. He threw the ball backwards 2 games in a row and caused them to lose games.
Right.
There's context. He was terrible. And like I said, he was going to be terrible.
And by the way, we got Georgia Tech 13, Colorado 10 at halftime, Auburn 17, Baylor 10 at halftime. So, but like with Will Levis, that's the thing about Tennessee, right? Is that I'm not trying to fall into the trap again, right? But it's like, hey, all you need is something other than Will Levis. And that should get you 6 wins just off of not having Will Levis. Like you should be able to.
He was the anti-win.
Yeah, you should be able to split with Jacksonville. You should be able to maybe split with Indy. Houston might be a tall order, but and then so as I was trying to look at it, right, I was like, hey, can Tennessee be a sleeper this year with Cam Ward? And then you know what I did? I opened up that schedule and I said, damn, week 1, you got to go to Mile High. Week 2, you got Jarrett Verse and the gang coming to you. So, no, the Titans will be no one sleeper this season.
Well, I mean, I don't think people thought the Commanders would go 12-5.
Not at all, but people were hopeful.
I'm not sure, like Vegas, and FanDuel and DraftKings and all these other sites probably didn't get a lot of overs on.
No, not 12-5, but there was a lot of public sentiment that at the very least they could have a winning season. Nobody was picking them to go to the NFC Championship game, but it wasn't like, oh, hey, Washington's only going to, like, I was probably the most critical. I thought they were only going to win 7 games. You know what I mean? Which just goes to show you that you just truly never know. But
this is why you play the game.
But Tennessee is getting L'Jarius Sneed back. But what does he look like? That knee has been bothering him for a couple of years now. So I don't know what that means. Brownlee, the other corner, Florida State, he went to Florida State, then he went to Louisville. Pretty good, but not good enough just yet. But they went out and got Cody Barton, who's on his 4th team in 4 years. I don't know how that works because he's such a good player. This is year 2 of Tavondre Sweat out of Texas. Cody Barton, by the way, go Utes. But Tennessee's other problem, in addition to Will Levis, they were 25th in red zone defense, and they gave up 134 yards per game rushing last season. I would like to think that you can't be that bad again, but there's only one problem. Brian Callahan is their head coach.
Yeah, and he was a nepotism hire like most of the NFL coaches are. I think people just feel like because these guys grew up with head coach fathers that it just kind of matriculates down to them. I don't know if Bill Gates has any sons, but I don't see any new computer programs coming out of that house in Seattle. He was hired. They gave him Will Levis. It's the same problem that most of these teams have, and unfortunately, if Cam Ward doesn't work out, it's going to be the same thing where they're going to end up firing him and bringing in a new coach. So I hope it does work out. I know I like Cam's leadership. I like his attitude. I like the way he's handled a lot of these questions because we talk about it. He's the #1 draft pick, and he's been talked about the least of any #1 draft pick that we can remember. That, maybe an offensive tackle. I think Eric Fisher went #1 overall. I think Eric Fisher went #1 overall to the Chiefs or something like that, or some time ago, and I think he ended up on the Chiefs. But we probably didn't talk about him a lot. But Cam Ward's the #1 overall quarterback. Warren Moon unretired his number so he can wear it. So it's like he should have gotten some fanfare. But I think he's been able to keep his head down and just keep working. Every clip of the coaches talk about him, talking about his confidence. So I think that, in a division that's winnable, I think the team rallying around the young quarterback and the young quarterback understanding he's the leader of the team. I think they can squeeze out some extra wins that maybe they shouldn't. Like very similar to C.J. Stroud's rookie year was like, no one's really think you guys are going to do anything, and then You go on this tear, you end up in the playoffs.
Yeah, like I still like them. Like even as bad as they were last year, as bad as Will Levis was, as bad as Mason Rudolph was, Tony Pollard still ran for 1,000 yards, for the third year in a row with that abominable wreck at quarterback. Tajay Spears, he brings the whole catch out of the backfield, make plays in open space. I like that. They bring in Khalil Mullings. How about that name, Mike? Khalil Mullings from Michigan. He can be your tough yardage, knock somebody over guy. So I like what they got going on in the backfield to include Cam Ward. Like, I'm not necessarily sold that Cam Ward is going to be this all-pro or anything along those lines, but I do like the attitude. As you would say, I like the moxie. Calvin Ridley is, a good receiver to start off with, and I love this. I can't even say his name, Alamayor from Stanford. Ask Travis Hunter about him. I love him.
We should have been a sleep game.
I love Okongwu at tight end, and Gunnar Helman's been playing well in the preseason as well. So on the offensive side of the ball, the only real question that I have two questions actually, is how good can the offensive line be? Because that's been a weakness. Skoronski's going to move over to the other side, so we'll see what happens there. But then outside of that, the other part of that is Cam Ward is the worst. He's the best of both worlds, but the worst of both worlds. He's that guy. He's that guy that holds onto the ball like Donovan McNabb looking for the big play. But then he gets in trouble because he starts dancing around but going sideways until something comes open. That's not going to work at this level. So that's why I say it might be a few years. And they got Tyler Lockett.
But if he already understands that, if he already understands, like, hey, what I was doing in Miami versus, North Carolina, or what I was doing versus UVA probably won't work against the Houston Texans. So I figured, I don't believe Warren Moon would have signed off on unretiring his number if he didn't see something.
Right.
Like if he didn't see, you know what? I think this young man has it. So with that, I think that's enough for me to be like, you know what? I'm going to give you a shot. I don't think he'd be terrible. I think he'll be better than Will Levis. Will Levis just, he didn't, you got to at least overperform in college for me to truly bank, okay, you're going to be a good NFL player if you overperform in college. Will Levis was, mediocre at best in college. He just had the look, the 6'4", big body, big arm, could throw it through a brick wall, but he couldn't throw a slant on time. So it's I think Cam Ward has a better grip of the game, and he does have the path. We talk about all the time he spent in college, going from one small school out in San Antonio, out to Washington, Washington State, and then getting to Miami, then in the NFL. So I think he's proven a lot of people wrong already. I can't imagine that he's going to get to this level and the bottom is going to fall out.
Right. I do agree with that. But I was talking about Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley still had 1,000 yards last year, only on 64 receptions, but that's what happens when you have a bad quarterback. So just having anything that's a little bit better, I think puts the Titans in a better position. So, and then last thing for me on this, 17% of Tennessee's drives last season ended in a turnover. So that just goes to tell you how bad it was.
That's so, 1 and 5 drives.
Yeah. So here we are. Here's the schedule here right in front of us. That's a tough start, Mr. Logical, like I brought up, going to Mile High to start off. Then you get Jarrett Verse in the gang week 2 with Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, everybody. I ain't gonna say Manny Forbes, but he out there too. Then you get Indy, a division game to start off week 3, and you just gotta hope that I guess Daniel Jones is off to a slow start, or just not being consistent, missing the deep ball still. Go to Houston. You're probably gonna take an L there. You got to travel to Arizona, and I'm high on Arizona this year. But the thing about a team like Arizona, they could lose to anybody and beat anybody. So I'm not going to just throw that in there as an L, like right on top.
I think Cam Ward is the opposite as far as leadership. I want to say the opposite. I'm not going to say Kyler Murray is a bad leader, but they had a story where Cam Ward threw the pass. I forgot who he threw it to, but it hit the guy right in the hands, and he dropped it. Cam asked him, "Hey man, what do you need me to put that so you can bring it in?" He was like, "I just bring it a little closer." He was like, "All right, man, I got you next time." And on the replay, clearly it hit him in both hands. He just dropped it. But he basically told him, like, oh, it was too far out. And Cam was like, all right, cool. I got you. Next time I'm going to put it here so you can, whatever the case may be.
The anti-Aaron Rodgers.
And we saw Kyler Murray literally go to the podium and say it's not his job to get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. It's like,
yeah.
Negro, yes, it is. Like, that's your only job.
So then you got the Raiders on the road, which isn't really a road game. Then you get your former coach, before you go back to Indy. And then it gets hellacious. You get your Chargers bye week, Houston, Seattle. Like, it's just a tough schedule, for a team at this stage. Like, it's not really like there's teams on this schedule that Tennessee should be able to hang around with or maybe even beat. But it's just one of those things, you know what I mean, where like, who can you definitively look at on the schedule and say that's a game Tennessee has to, or they will win? I don't see that game.
You rarely think that the year following a team getting the number 1 overall pick. So the expectation is they're gonna have, especially when you take a quarterback number 1 overall. If Jacksonville would have got the number 1 overall pick, and they, made a couple of moves because they have an established quarterback who, we're going to talk about here shortly. But you don't have to thrust the quarterback into a bad situation. Whereas Cam has to be the leader of a team that literally earned themselves a number 1 pick, and he's supposed to come in and be the somewhat savior. So I think it's a lot of weight on his shoulders, but long as they look like they're progressing, I think they'll be fine. I think there's a couple of games they can win. I think they have the talent to win some of these games. They just have to make all the plays when they're there. They can't sacrifice 2 or 3 drives in a row and not get points. If they get down 10-0, that next drive has to be a touchdown. You can't go down 17-0 and then get your touchdown. So, like, you have they're gonna have to play, I wouldn't say mistake-free football, but they have to be able to counter what's going to be inevitable when they're going to be down in games, because they are a team that earned themselves a number 1 pick. So they're going to have to just battle and make sure they stay locked in those moments. Because, like I said, the game against Denver, it could get bad early, because Denver does have a good defense. Granted, it is a little fugazi because they play a bunch of terrible quarterbacks, but a rookie quarterback probably fits in the same echelon as these guys who Denver beat most of the games last year. So, like,
I don't know, Mike. Great quarterbacks can throw you open too.
Yo, we've seen Matthew Stafford throw it, like Calvin down there somewhere. He's 6'5". Just throw it up. If it's incomplete, it's incomplete. But just throw it up.
So I think best case scenario, and I'm being very generous. Best case scenario is 7-10, but it's probably more like 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if they would have made the moves that Houston made when they got CJ Stroud, and they shored up and got, like, if they would have made a move hypothetically, like they get Cam, they trade some other capital, they get back to 3 or 4, and they get Abdul Carter.
Oh, so the Texan style, right?
The Texan style, like, so it's like, okay, they made moves to, like, the show, hey, we're putting in action, get some free agents. But I think they just kind of did, like, you know what, we're going to keep it simple. We're just going to build. We have youth, and we're going to see if it works.
So then you got the Texans. They won the division the last 2 years. You know, they're going to probably have a top 3 or 4, maybe 5 defense in the league. You know, Will Anderson, you got Petrie coming back from injury. Derek Stingley's probably going to be a top 5 corner by the end of the year if he's not already. Kamari Lassiter on the other side. You know, Daniil Hunter. You know, it just goes on and on. Like, they just have a wealth of riches. You know,
Daniil Hunter looks photoshopped. Like him and Miles human people.
The other problem though that the Texans have though is we alluded to.
Damn, Mike, say something positive.
You know,
Friday, we above ground. Say something positive. Say something nice right now. Type it out right now. And
back and forth. It's Friday and I'm ready to sing.
Back.
You know
no faith. That's even worse.
But you know, so Bobby Slowick got let go as offensive coordinator. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, they brought in Nick Cali, you know, coming in. He's one of these McVay disciples, you know, coming over from the Rams.
Oh, he had a cup of coffee with McVay.
Yeah, there you go. You know, Joe Mixon is out probably the first 3 to 4 games. Like I mentioned before, you know, you got Chubb and you got Damian Pierce, you know, as the running backs, you know, but the wide receiver room is where the Texans made their moves this year. You know, Tank Dell's probably not going to play this year. And I feel so bad for that dude. You know, I saw him about 3 years ago.
Body apart.
Yeah, I saw him about 3 years ago down here at the Alamo Dome when he was with Houston, the college, playing against UTSA. And he was the guy that stood out to me. And I was like, yo, this guy's going to be like a Dante Hall type, you know, like all that. But he's just been hurt. So, but, you know, now, you know, they brought in Christian Kirk. Already had Nico Collins. You know, Stephon Diggs is gone, but they drafted Jaden Higgins in the 2nd round. First ever fully guaranteed 2nd round draft pick contract. So they got the weapons. They just don't have the line, and that's going to be a problem that I think is going to linger all season and bite them in the ass at some point.
Yeah, last year they had probably like one of the worst rated interior lines. And I remember the game I was watching, I believe it was a Chicago game.
Oh, there's the positivity.
Yeah, there we go. See, all it takes. I believe it was a Chicago game, and the broadcast were talking about when that stat came up. And the stat came up on the screen. Next play, somebody came right up the A gap. C.J. Stroud's running for his life. Throws an incomplete pass because they just couldn't block up front. They're going to have to figure out how to scheme that up or just get these guys to work in unison. I think fixing the offensive line is probably, I wouldn't say easy because I think that's the wrong word to use, but because I think the requirements are just kind of clear. It's not a lot of exotic stuff a defense can do in the amount of time. Like, they're not going to bring 11 guys up to the line of scrimmage and drop 7 guys in the zone. It's going to be more standard. Like, hey, this is their front. This guy goes on these kind of blitz on the virus zone. This guy goes. You just guys have to figure out how to communicate who goes where. Put your 330-pound body in front of the 245-pound linebacker that's blitzing. Give C.J. Stroud 3 seconds to throw the ball. So, like I said, I don't want to like oversimplify it, but I feel like a good offensive line coach can, married with a good offensive coordinator, can understand, okay, cool. These are our limitations. These are our strengths. You have Nick Chubb. Granted, he came back from injury from Cleveland. You have pieces to make it easy on your offense. You have a quarterback that's, you know, trending to be an all-pro. Keep him upright. Big targets on the outside. Allow him time to distribute the ball.
I could literally see the Texans being that old school San Diego Charger team that had a winning record, had the number 1 defense, had the number 1, you know, well, they ain't going to have the number 1 offense, but have a decent enough offense, but just still not make the playoff because the offensive line cost them dearly in some big game. And, you know, when you look at their schedule, you know, because they finished first place. So, you know, they're going to have a lot of these games that we're talking about, you know, the Baltimores, the Buffaloes. And, you know, so I'm trying not to just look at these games and just go, yo, that's an automatic L. But the way that I feel about it is that's an automatic L. So, you know, I like D'Amico Ryans, you know, I like the culture that he's building there. the energy that he brings to the team. So, they could sneak some games that they shouldn't, but they're still not, like, at most they'll win 10 games. They're still not going to be a threat for home field advantage. They've never made the divisional round of the playoffs in their history. They're 0-6. I'm sorry, the AFC Championship game, they're 0-6 in the divisional round in their history. So looking at the schedule here, right? Look, man, I ain't trying to be all Mike up in here, you know what I'm saying? But there is a universe where the Texans can start 0-3. There is a universe out there where that exists. Because week 1, I talked about how Cam Ward's going to get it in week 2. Jarrett versus them guys coming after CJ Stroud week 1. And that's the first game of the season. So you got the new offensive line, and they might be starting a rookie left tackle at that. So, that's the first game of the year. You in trouble. I am Mike, but still, I'm talking about you, Mike. But Tampa, right? Baker Mayfield, they got all these weapons for him now. And lo and behold, Tampa Bay can actually run the ball now. You know what I mean? So, like, you want to give Houston that game because it's at home. You know what I mean? But there's a world.
Take that game.
There's a world where Tampa could win that game. You know what I mean? But because remember we were talking about Todd Bowles in that defense, Sammy Sosa. They're either going to get a sack, they're going to give up a big play.
But that's the thing. That's the kind of defense where that wide receiver room, even with the tight ends, you can't make that mistake. CJ Stroud is a very smart young quarterback, and he's going to see it coming a mile away. So I think that Tampa Bay game has the likelihood of turning into a shootout where they don't run the ball, and it's a 34-31 victory for whomever.
Well, CJ Stroud might have to get into his Omaha bag. You know what I'm saying? Where he's at the line literally doing all the window dressing, the eye candy to try to trick defenses. And, I don't know if he's ready for that. I mean, he's very smart. Like, you remember when you were talking about the video where he was breaking down.
Micah Parsons were breaking down a play, yeah.
Yeah, so like he is smart, but you still got to have time. So unless they're going to be throwing a lot of bubbles, a lot of screens to keep defenses honest, and they might.
Listen, just throw the ball from where the blitz came from. I mean, there's nobody there. So if you see this guy coming, check it. Run this dig route here so I can get rid of this ball because this guy's coming off the edge.
So, but there is a world that they can go into their bye week 1-4. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying
more likely 3-2. I think they have the edge on Tampa Bay. I think they have the edge on Jacksonville, and then Tennessee, first time rookie quarterback on the road in division. It'll be Tennessee's second division game, but just on the road against your quintessential division winner, like the team that people are predicting to win your division. I think that could be a tough game for them. So 3-2 is likely going in the bye week. But like I said, I just think they have the most
look at these
upside and the least amount of questions.
But look at these 3 games coming off the bye. Saying you got to go up to Mike McDonald's defense, play the 49ers, who's going to hopefully, injuries and everything,
Is Sam Darnold a pumpkin by then?
I think so, but that defense is going to be real. You know what I mean?
Well, Sam Darnold, that famous I'm seeing ghost.
And it's a tough place to play.
That guy is still in there.
And but then you got San Francisco, who, like I said, all things created equal and healthy. Ayuk should be back by then. McCaffrey, knock on wood, will be there. So that's going to be available. Tough. You know what I'm saying? Denver, so to your point though, last year,
the
right?
San Francisco receiving core is limited.
It's below average.
Yeah.
For lack of better words.
And then their quarterback everybody needs good players.
So I wonder if Denver
quarterback doesn't have a bailout guy like the way Houston does. Like Nico's down there somewhere. Like I think every team needs to have a guy like that on their team. If they can find him, they need a guy that, hey, it's 3rd and 11. and I need to get this first down, or we're in the red zone, I need to throw this jump ball up. Houston has that guy that can make that play, coupled with the quarterback.
I wonder if Denver is going to be that team, sort of like Seattle was a few years ago, where you don't want to go to Mile High, but you don't mind them coming to you. And you know, because I know you always talk about like, hey, last year, right? They went up against the Ravens. It was like 41-10. You know, they went up against Buffalo in the playoffs, got smoked out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you know, they beat Kansas City.
Any team that had a quarterback that started in the playoffs last year, they were like 1-7 against.
Yeah, they beat Kansas City, and you know that was Carson Wentz because they benched everybody.
I mean, they played a great game against Kansas City the first time. They had the block field goal at the end. They would have won by a point. I believe they lost like 19-17 or something.
Yeah.
Or 16-14. They would have won by a point.
And I'm not saying that to shit on Denver or anything like that. I'm just, you know, like it just makes me wonder because you know they're still young. You know, even though they have this defense, you know, Bo Nix is young. You know, they're still trying to figure out their running game. Like J.K. Dobbins might be their starter. And, you know, you know you're not going to get a full season out of him more than likely.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not doing the AFC West today, but, like, I'm not attaching my my caboose to the Denver train.
So,
I mean, it's beyond Sean Payton.
So you got that. So you got those 3 games. Then you get Jacksonville, go to Tennessee, and then you go Buffalo. Another division road game, but then you go to Arrowhead. You know, so I think it's one of those things. I forgot who we were talking about when we were doing one of our previews, but it was like, hey, the schedule is tough because of the teams on the schedule. It was the Rams. The schedule is tough because of who's on the schedule, but it's how the games stack up that makes the schedule a little tougher.
Somebody else had a nice little. I think Tampa Bay had a decent gap between some.
Yeah, they had it like Philly here, you know, Baltimore a few weeks later. But like Houston is looking at this thing, like even going back to the top here, you know, they start off with the Rams in Tampa, but then they get Baltimore, so they get the bye week in between. That's awesome. But then they get those 3 games in succession. Then you get Buffalo with a division road game, and then go to Arrowhead. So like that's the type of stuff that tanks your season if that offensive line isn't fixed.
You can get tripped up, but like I said, I don't think like if I had to scroll back up to the top so I can see like the week 1. So the Rams, I imagine that the odds makers are, because it's at LA, will give them 1.5. Tampa Bay at Houston, I'm gonna call that probably for Houston. They're gonna be favored against Jacksonville, favored against Tennessee. Baltimore will be favored. So I just don't think they walk into any one of those games looking at it like, oh, we are margins behind in any position group. If their offensive line is as porous as it has been for like the last season and a half, then that's a problem. But if they're, you know, top tier 12th ranked offensive line, I think going into Seattle, facing San Francisco or Denver, I don't think that's a challenge. I think when you play Kansas City and Buffalo, Buffalo has a definitive advantage at quarterback because everything that Josh Allen is capable of doing and shown that he's capable of doing. And then the same thing with Kansas City. You're just at a disadvantage at quarterback. It's not a huge gap. It's not a rookie versus a vet gap, but there is a dynamic that those 2 quarterbacks present that CJ Stroud doesn't. And of course, Baltimore. But the rest of these games, I think he matches up brain for brain, talent for talent, arm for arm with any of these guys. And like I said, I like his relationship with his wide receiver group. So I think I want to find another reason to pick a different team to win the division, but I just see 10-7 being more attainable for Houston than any other the 3 teams in the division.
Yeah, so as Mike is saying, you know, Army out here losing to Tarleton State, FCS Tarleton State, probably future CUSA member Tarleton State. You know,
I was watching them last week.
You know, and then you got Colorado just tied the
played
game.
Portland State last week.
Colorado just tied it up at 13. Auburn still up 17-10. Jackson Arnold with 79 passing yards and 78 rushing yards. You know, so yeah, but that's the Texans. So then you got the Jags. You know, Trevor Lawrence is back. You know, look, when Trevor Lawrence was right, the last time we saw them in a position of being, I guess, decent,
viable.
Yeah, they were 8-3. He got hurt. I came on here and I was talking about how they should have sat him. You know,
that's when he got his ankle stepped on, right?
Yeah, and I said they should have sat him. They didn't, and then he ended up with a concussion. And then the season went down. They went into the last week of the season with a chance to win it in, and they lost to Tennessee. So they come into last year, nothing goes right from this jump. And remember last year, you know, I was on here like, hey, Doug Peterson might not make it through the season. You know, he did make it through the season, but he didn't make it after the season. You know, but you know, so I went into last year thinking that Jacksonville was already going to take a step back. So when I look at Jacksonville this year, new coaching staff, you know, and this is where you get into those questions. So Duval, Liam Cohen, right?
Yeah.
You know, he was the offensive coordinator for Will Levis that year when Will Levis got all the hype. Then he came to Tampa, you know, Baker Mayfield, you know, finishing, you know, top 2 or 3 in passing yards. So now he comes to Jacksonville, but you're not the offensive coordinator anymore. You're the head coach now. So how's that going to look? You know, and, you know, so when I think
he's getting a little bit too much credit for Baker Mayfield. I think people thought Baker Mayfield was washed because of the way Cleveland kind of discarded him. But that guy's been a baller and been a gamer his whole football career. And everyone that's been like coaching him has been like, oh, he did this for Baker. Cap. Baker was doing Baker shit forever. It's just that he was in an organization that did dumb shit and went after Deshaun.
Yeah, like going to regular seasons with 4 quarterbacks on their roster.
Charges. Yeah, 5, 6.
You know what I'm saying? And so you know, the defense is what I'm wondering about with Jacksonville, because you know they got what you would think is a decent pass rush. You know, they got the other Josh Allen. You know, Josh Hines.
Hines.
Yeah.
Allen Hines.
Hines Allen. And then they got Travon Walker, you know, saying over there. Tyson Campbell, their best corner, was out all last year. He's back now. You know, Jacksonville went out and got Travis Hunter. So I expect a lot of screens. I expect a lot of, you know, like I was talking about with Houston, throw those bubbles, get them out in space and see what happens. You know, they got Brian Thomas Jr., who broke all their rookie records last year as a wide receiver. So Jacksonville has talent, but it comes back to guess what? The offensive line, you know, and these running backs, you know, Tank Bigsby and Trevor Etienne, or Travis Etienne. So Travis Etienne, I guess, is the home run hitter. He goes the 60-yard touchdown runs, but then the rest of the game he gets 2 yards a carry. You know, Bigsby is your short yardage guy who I thought was going to ready for the word, who was ready to surmount, you know, Etienne last year. But now they got this running back from where, Mr. Logical? From Virginia Tech, Basol Tootin. I got my eye on him. I think he might be the starter by the end of the year. So before I go and
but a lot of NFL teams don't put all 3 running backs in a game. A lot of teams just stick with the 2, and I feel like
right.
But that's because they want to throw the ball all the time.
I just think Tootin is that good that. So you might ask me, Mr. Logical, why do you think that 2.5? Like, what makes Basol Tootin so good? And I say, hey, he finished second in the NCAA behind Ashton Genty in yards after contact last year. You know, on a team that went 6-7 with their quarterback hurt all year. So I see the talent, I see the vision, right? So Jacksonville just needs another person in the secondary, I believe, to make their defense at least average. So they drafted Caleb Bransaw from Tulane. I hope, for their sake, he's not Benjamin St. Just, but he might be. But if he's not, he's going to be good. The craziest stat, Mr.
You're
Logical.
really mad about that guy.
I am. The craziest stat, Mr. Logical. Here's a pop quiz for you. How many turnovers did Jacksonville force last year?
6.
9. They forced 9 turnovers the whole season. But hey, through all that, they swept Tennessee.
I mean, I think we could probably take a bunch of practice squad players from every team and still a good enough team that could have beat Tennessee last year.
But
Tennessee was awful last year.
I like Jacksonville. For those that don't know 2-5 very well, the Jaguars was my closet team. I was the Mark Brunell guy, so obviously I'm Commanders all day, but Jacksonville was like my second team. So I just want to see Jacksonville be good again. But Trevor Lawrence, if he can come back from the injury, I think he gives them a chance to win games.
So here, when we look at this early schedule, I know I wholeheartedly believe games are won in the trenches. Offensive, defensive line, you control that side of the ball. But in order for that effort to completely translate to winning, the person behind has to make plays. So that's either linebackers coming through making tackles because they got to fill the gaps. They got to make these tackles. They got to put the pressure on quarterbacks, or the quarterback standing behind this line making plays for the offense. Carolina, I'd give you an advantage at quarterback just off experience.
I'm excited for that game.
But Carolina's trending up, and the Trevor Lawrence fall off has to be studied. Like I don't know what happened, because he had the 27-point comeback in the playoffs. I think it's probably like second or third for the most points in the comeback in the playoff game. And then from that point on, it's been mediocre. Because even that year they were 8-3. I think he had like 11 touchdowns and a couple of picks for like 8 or 9 games of that season. It was like he's not doing anything. He's not messing anything up, but he's also not really changing the outcome of games. And then
now
he
we're
started
about to
negatively changing the outcome of games.
Now we're about to find out that truth about Liam Cohen, right? Like, how good is he with these quarterbacks?
Yeah, like I said, Baker Mayfield is going to do the same thing this year, if not better. I don't think the offensive coordinator
he also has
1 year. Yeah, but the offensive coordinator for 1 year, like, you didn't bring Baker back from the dead. Like, Baker got cast away by a team. They had really loving eyes for Deshaun Watson. And I'm all about innocent until proven guilty, whatever the case may be. But all this shit was still pending. And the way information was coming up, it was coming up like, surprise, like you'd heard about 3 or 4 cases, then be surprised, here's 4 more, surprise, here's 2 more. And it was like, cool, we'll take that guy. I'm like, you didn't even know if all the surprises were done yet, and you disregarded the guy you took number 1 overall. So, like, I think the way he said Duval let me know that he wasn't ready for the job, but let him do it.
The thing
they're going to have a quarterback deficit against Cincinnati and Houston, San Francisco, and Kansas City. They're going to be second in the quarterback race.
I wonder about Trevor Lawrence. The thing that I wonder about Trevor Lawrence is, why doesn't he get the excuses that the other quarterbacks get? Whenever young quarterbacks struggle, we always talk about, oh, it's the team, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that, no running game, it's this. And then with Trevor Lawrence, we're like, fuck all that. Go be great.
No.
Even though he's had bad coaching,
he's gotten all those excuses. He got the Urban Meyer one.
It's the other way around.
Urban Meyer year, they gave the Urban
Meyer year just speaks for itself.
Yeah, that was a wash. Then he got Doug Peterson for what, 2,
Who's
3
not
years?
That great of a coach.
I'm not saying it's coaching, but he had the 27-point comeback in the playoffs. And then we haven't seen anything close to that since. So if the same coaching staff was in place when you won the division, made the playoffs, made the comeback, had the good year, started out 8-3 the following year, all that stuff was got hurt. Yeah, I get it. You get hurt, you miss time, but wasn't hurt last year. He just wasn't good. And I don't think
the team wasn't good.
I like to give most young quarterbacks a pass because you got to figure it out. I don't think everyone comes out the gate 50 ball like Patrick Mahomes in their second year starting. It's not for everybody. Brock Purdy, with his ability to, and people say, oh, he had the Avengers. Well, Trey Lance had those same Avengers, and he wasn't getting on the ball. Nick Mullins had the same playbook that Brock Purdy's using.
When you showed me Trevor Lawrence's Avengers, I'll stand down. How about that?
Well, he's had some weapons. He's had a lot of weapons.
But what's the weapons? You said it. You just said less than 5 minutes ago. I believe that games are won in the trenches. He ain't got no damn trenches.
Well, yeah, okay. When you have time, you still got to make on-time throws sometimes, and you can't fumble the ball. You can get sacked. That happens. But if you have a fumbling problem, he doesn't fumble. You just get sacked a lot. Trevor Lawrence is fumbling a lot. Like every 4 or 5 sacks, he was fumbling the ball. He wasn't losing the ball, but he was fumbling. He was more consistent with fumbling than scoring drives off the sack. So it's like that was a problem. So that makes it look like, okay, you're not processing right because you're getting sacked too much. You've been in the league too long. You need to be able to recognize this and that, make these checks, whatever the case may be. So that's why he doesn't get an excuse. Then he got the big contract. I don't know how he got the big contract and Daniel Jones got a decent sized contract. I still thought it was too big. They have the same record. They're just almost identical. And now we're going to get to see them head to head 2 times a year. And we're going to see if 17 is one up on 16. Yeah. But that's the part with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, yeah, I like Trevor Lawrence. I think he looks the part. I think he was the number 1 rated high school out of when he was in high school out of Georgia. And then he broke Deshaun Watson's state records. And then he went on to Clemson, put a spanking on Alabama in the playoffs. And he looked good his whole college career. And it's just the last couple of seasons haven't gone their way. I think this is a make or break year for him in the eyes of the public. I think people are going to I think people are going to look at his contract like that is a waste of $250 million if he has another bad year. But I don't know what the Jags can do as far as the cap situation, if they have to keep him up to move off of him. But this is a year to make a break. So hopefully they always look the part. I think their jerseys, the colors, I think they just look like a good football team. I think because their uniform just look really good, you think they're like a good football team. Like when you see the Browns and they suck, it's like, it looks like they suck. It doesn't have the same kind of flash. It's a scientific thing the way teams pick these colors. And the Jags, when they wear their all black, it just feels like a better team.
So that's that's why North Carolina can't be successful before Bill Belichick, because they just look soft.
That powder, all
right, let's go through this real quick.
It sounds stupid, but there's science behind it.
Yeah, so this Carolina game, like I said, it's my 4th favorite game of week 1. Obviously, I want to see my Commanders. Philly and Dallas speaks for itself. I'm excited about the Brazil game. Yes, Travis Etienne sucks. He ain't no elite back. But what was I saying? So yeah, but that Carolina game is my 4th favorite game. You know what I mean? So look, man, the same way that you're talking about Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne started out as a rookie with 5.1 yards per carry. He hasn't cracked 4 yards per carry since. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah. So I like that Carolina game. I think they get the win there. I think it's going to take a few weeks for Carolina to kind of get going, but I hope they play Travis at corner a little bit just so Tetaroa can run all over his ass. Did they
draft him to play corner, or did they draft him to play wide receiver?
Well, so it sounds like the depth chart has him as the 2nd receiver and then the 4th corner. But I gotta think with the state of Jacksonville's secondary, they're gonna have to play him at corner at some point. They're gonna have to, because outside of Tyson Campbell, You know, hey, I brought up that on the hot box earlier today. Y'all told me no when I said ETN to Dallas. But yeah, so then you got Cincinnati in week 2. It's one of those games. Cincinnati should win this game, but Cincinnati can't stop nobody, so they can lose to anybody. Cincinnati's probably looking down the barrel of another 8-9, 9-8 type year just based off their defense. We just talked about Houston's offensive line. That's at home. I'm not saying Jacksonville going to win, but I don't think it's a walk in the park. They're going to lose at San Francisco. They're going to lose to Kansas City. You know, I think that Seattle game is probably a toss-up. You know, the Rams, you know, that blitz get after Trevor Lawrence. Then you get the bye week. You know, and then you get a bunch of teams like, you know, that might be equal, might be a little bit better. But outside of that,
bunch of 27 to 24 games. It's a matter
that's what I'm saying.
27, or you're going to be held to 24,
right? Yeah. So at the end of this season, we're either going to say, "Hey, Jacksonville went 6-3 in one score games," or Jacksonville went 2-7 in one score games.
In one score game. I think 2-7 is more likely because I just don't, like I say, you do, like you're the stats guy. I just kind of look at the way the team is set up, and the head coach and the quarterback. This is the third coach that is going to try to amend the career trajectory of this quarterback.
So I got Jacksonville.
It's going to be me.
I got
9-8. Yeah, 9-8 is a stretch. I'm looking more like 7-10 until I see if Travis Hunter can have the impact.
Yeah. No, worst case scenario is definitely 5-12. It definitely is. You know what I mean?
I say 7-10 because I figure a game like they'll beat the Chargers and then lose to Arizona. You know, like they'll have those because just because they have the talent on the defensive line, they have multiple top 5 picks defensively. You know, between Travis Hunter if he starts, Hines Allen, like so they have like top tier, top first round draft talent on their defense and the front line. It's just a matter of, is it going to be consistent every week? Is the coach going to get out coached? Because, you know, sometimes rookie coaches, you know, 4th and 3 from the 48, you know, do you want to kick a 65-yard field goal or you want to go for it? Or you want to punt and play field position? You know, those decisions, you know, they kind of wreck. Like the guy that was coaching in Denver, what was his name? Nathaniel Hackett. We thought a lot of these things were no-brainers, but he got out there and that's when they attempted that 68 or 69-yard field goal or something instead of like running the play on 4th down. You said all 3 timeouts. It was like 4th
and 17 or something. Yeah.
No, it was like 4th and manageable.
It was like 4th and 5. It was like 4th and 5.
Yeah, 5 and 6.
That Monday night football game against
field goal. Yeah, it was like 68-yard field goal, or go for it. And you said all 3 timeouts. You stop, get the ball back, whatever the case may be.
Well, remember, he had to hire a dude to
after a few weeks.
To be in his ear or something. But you know, so the Colts, you know, like I said, everybody, it seems the Colts are getting a lot of love, you know, because of the defensive moves that they made, which I do like. But I can't buy Daniel Jones at quarterback. I don't buy Anthony Richardson at quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I might trust Riley Leonard more than both of them just because I haven't seen them yet. Like you always talk about, the backup is always the most popular. Riley Leonard's popular right now with me, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't see these 2 bums already. So, you know, but they do have an opening manageable schedule, you know, but we'll get to that. So Michael Pittman, you know, the number 1 receiver that I don't think is a number 1 receiver. I just think he happens to be the best receiver on that team. You know, Josh Downs, I've been waiting for him to break out. He missed a couple of games last year. So you remember I was talking about Alec Pierce, right? And I said I had that stat. So this is remember Tampa Bay, right? Sammy Sosa. He had 37 catches last year. He averaged 22.3 yards per catch. That is nuts.
What was his drop percentage?
Well, what was Anthony Richardson's overthrow percentage?
Mike, you're not getting another wide receiver. You had Micah Parsons. Y'all pissed that away. you don't get no more talent for you. You just
no
gotta
more
suffer.
shiny toys.
You gotta suffer through this 6-11 season
I like tears
like
too.
the rest of us had to. So
yeah, and so Will Freeze and Brian Kelly's gone off the offensive line. But even with all that being said, Jonathan Taylor still finished 4th in rushing last year. So elite guy at running back is always going to keep you in the game, ball control, good defense. It's just going to come down to, and I don't want to be cliche, but can Daniel Jones make a play late in the game, to get you in field goal range even? It don't even got to be a touchdown, but can he make the correct play to get you in field goal range to close out some of these games? Because we talk about the NFL, like, yeah, you got your bad teams, but most spreads are still single digits.
Yeah, they're less than a touchdown.
Yeah, so
they are possession games.
Yeah, so the Colts, I'm not going to make the argument that the Colts are going to go 2-15 or anything like that. I'm not going to get all hyperbolic in that way. But I just don't see what I guess everybody else is seeing.
Well, this is something that, I'm a little biased because the Colts are my dad's favorite team, so I'm not going to bash them. But this is something I noticed. They voted Daniel Jones as a captain.
Mm-hmm.
So every other captain, I think it's Quentin Nelson, Powers, who else? The big defensive tackle,
DeForest Buckner.
DeForest Buckner, another guy, and Daniel Jones. So it's guys that have been captains on that team for multiple seasons, and Daniel Jones is the 5th guy. So I don't know if he's a rah-rah guy, if it's just his presence, but they have definitely rallied around him. I don't know what that means for Anthony Richardson, but he's a capable NFL quarterback. I think the 4 years, 160 that he got, and then Saquon not getting paid just kind of put too much pressure on him, but I think the GM and the coach knew that they were probably safe and he was going to be their scapegoat. It's ironic to get paid $160 million to be a scapegoat, but I feel like that's how he was used. And then, he had a couple of teams in between there, and now he's a starter for the Colts. Perfect position. It sucks for the Colts because now you got to figure out another quarterback for something like the 4th to 5th year in a row. You're working in, a couple of castaway quarterbacks from other teams. When you're in a position to draft a guy, they drafted the wrong guy. So I can see the team frustration, but them select him as captain, like you said, just make a play per quarter that the team needs. Get a drive going, and on 3rd and 7, scramble for 8 yards, keep that drive going to get in field goal range to go up 10-7 instead of putting the ball back. Little victories like that throughout the game, and then in the 4th quarter, that the victory drive, 5 minutes left in the game, you're up 4, hold on to the ball.
Right.
Move the ball down the field, force other team to use their timeouts. Just make those plays against the teams that you should beat. Like the game against Miami, they shouldn't be scrambling. Miami, we've known this year, they talked about they're not being really physical, being really upset with the physicality of the practices. Maybe they're not a physical team. Maybe that's when you let Quentin Nelson loose and you pull that guard a lot. And then that guard is just running down on some of their guys that are coming back from injury who might not be 100%, I'm not saying force an injury, but Bradley Chubb might not be able to get off that block as quickly until, he really gets his
coming off an injury, him and
coming off an injury. Yeah, him and Jalen Phillips. So they come off injury. So they might be a half step slower to get to that hole. You put Quentin Nelson in it. You just got to run away from Chop.
You know what I mean?
So Miami, Denver, Tennessee, the Rams, the Raiders, Arizona, you shouldn't walk into those stadiums thinking oh, this is a loss for us. You should be able to compete.
3-3 is a win in those first 6 games. Just going off of, because I don't know what to expect from Daniel Jones. I don't trust him. So 3-3 would be a win. And
3-3 would be a win.
And like I mentioned, they got Cam Bynum. They brought in Mooney Ward. They still got Kenny Moore back there. So for the first time in forever, I like their secondary. They fired Gus Bradley. You know,
Yeah.
he was
Smart
there
move.
for 3 years. He never blitzed. You know, they went in points given up. They went 28, 28, 29. That's their ranks in the league. You know, during his 3 years there, 24th in yards given up last year, -4 in turnover margin last year. So what did they go do? They went and got a defensive coordinator off the Bengals staff. You know what I'm saying? Not trying to say anything.
Maybe he had a lot of great ideas they didn't listen to.
Yeah, he definitely brings a lot of exotic blitzes from what I read about him. You know, so that'll be a little different. They drafted JTT from Ohio State, you know, in the draft this year. They got Latu last year. You know, Zaire Franklin led the league in tackles, and I know Lethal always talks about he misses a lot of tackles. Well, when you lead the league in tackles, you're gonna miss some tackles.
Yeah, when you're in the point of attack all the time. Yeah, you're not gonna.
Yeah, just like we talk about people like Russell Westbrook. You got all those assists, you're gonna have a lot of turnovers as much as you got the ball in your hand.
I got the ball in my hand a lot.
It just comes with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. They got Samson Ibukam. He's coming off an Achilles, but he had 9.5 sacks the year before. So the Colts definitely have a defense that'll be worth talking about. You know, maybe a top 10 to 12 defense potentially. They still got Kwity Paye. You know, so like the Colts are not devoid of talent. You know what I'm saying? They're just missing the position that, because even if, so you got CJ Stroud, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even as bad as Trevor Lawrence has been, he's still better than Jones or Richardson. You know what I'm saying?
He's Jones and
their stats
Trevor
are similar.
Very eerily similar, yeah.
And then no, Russ, I'm telling you, man, LeBron the same way. You dribble the ball a lot, you're gonna have a lot of turnovers. I don't care who you are. Go look at Kobe's turnovers. Like,
go look at Magic's turnovers.
If you hold the ball a lot, you're gonna have turnovers. And you know what I'm saying? I like that Danny Pennies, but I like to call him Nanny Nichols. You know what I'm saying? But that's my first Nanny Nichols of the season. There you go. So the Colts definitely have a future once they figure out who the quarterback is. And until they do, I just can't believe in it.
Yeah, and I imagine that next year is going to be a different quarterback as well. No matter.
Yeah, I imagine next year, because I think Daniel Jones is only on a 1-year deal, if I remember correctly.
I can't imagine that 4 years, 160 is still floating around there. It has to be a couple of 1-year deals and a couple of buyouts here and there.
Yeah, and we got Georgia Tech 20-13 over Colorado early in the fourth. Auburn 24, Baylor 17 with about 50 seconds left in the third quarter. Baylor just scored to cut the lead in half. So, you know, like the Colts aren't.
They're not dead in the water.
No, they're not, because even if you go back to last year, right? If Jonathan Taylor doesn't try to celebrate too early up at Mile High where he tried to reach the ball across the end zone and dropped it, the Colts might have made the playoffs last year. Like literally, they finished 8-9. That was the game that I picked them to finish 8-9, but that was the game that kept them from being 9-8. They would have been 9-8 with Cincinnati and Miami. They would have been in that whole little mix of teams that were depending on, you know, Kansas City to beat Denver so they could get in. And you know, and the Colts would have been in the front of that because Jonathan Taylor doesn't do that. They win that game at Denver and they're in the front seat. So, you know, so it's just one. So they were right there, even with as bad as Anthony Richardson was, you know, most of the year, you know, but I'm just not in on it. I'm not doing it, but we could go through the schedule. You know, so we talked about it. 3-3 in the first 6 would be a win. You know, you go to the Chargers, you know, Tennessee, you should get that. So maybe 4-4 you're looking at, but then I think you lose those next 4. I think you lose those next 4.
That is a tough stretch.
I don't think you can score with Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you can make more plays. I know Aaron Rodgers isn't Aaron Rodgers, but he came on towards the end of last year. He's still better than either one of your quarterbacks. You'll beat Tennessee. You know, you're going to Arrowhead after the bye. You know what I mean? Then you get Houston again. So that's just a tough stretch, man. Like, and then you still got at Seattle, San Francisco, and then you close at Houston. And I don't think Houston's going to have or whoever. I don't think
kind of
whoever wins the
lead.
division is going to have it wrapped up. You know what I mean? I think this division.
But if they
gonna
have
go into the
fourth
last
wrapped
week.
up, if they have fourth wrapped up, then maybe you get a freebie game, and that closes you out at 9-8. But sometimes, like I know it's rare because Kansas City essentially let Denver, beat them in division. I know a lot of teams want to spoil the other team, but it's like, you know what? We're locked in at the 4th seed. Let's go ahead and get these guys this rest, play the backups, and maybe Indy plays that game. I got them 9-8. I just feel like because they were 8-9 last year with, pretty much inconsistent quarterback play, I'm not saying Daniel Jones is going to be so consistent, but he's at least 63, 64% completion. If he doesn't fumble and he can get the ball to Jonathan Taylor and occasionally throw on time to Michael Pittman, I think that'll be enough. Like I said, this entire
they were on the
division
doorstep with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, so this whole division is coin flips in most of the games. A couple of games
like
going to
a
be
box of chocolates.
You're going to be at disadvantages. Like the Baltimore's, anyone who sees us playing Baltimore, Buffalo, or Kansas City, or even Cincinnati, you could probably chalk that up to like, okay, each one of these teams in the division is probably going to lose each one of those games. Those 4 teams. Like I mean, it's just because like. This a talent. You set a talent deficit.
And didn't get swept by the rest of the division.
So just the talent deficit that they have. But I don't know, just
all right.
Steady quarterback play.
Well,
the Colts offensive line is it's like a Big Ten offensive line.
I'm going Jacksonville, Houston, Indy, and then Tennessee bringing up the rear, if you will. Pause.
I got Houston in the wild card hunt at 9-8. Jacksonville 7-10. I'm giving them credit because they have talent. I just feel like you said, the offensive line, the trenches, and the inability to run the ball more than 4 yards a clip is going to.
Yeah, like last 2 years, ETN.
That's going to cost
3.7.
That's going to cost them. I think a game they had against Jacksonville last year, they could have closed it out. They couldn't run the ball. They had to punt it back to Houston. Houston went down. CJ Stroud threw the touchdown. They lose the game 27-24.
That's because I told you about Basul Tootin. It's coming.
Well, you got to think, like, are they going to go that deep in the depth chart? I mean, you got to, like, if I'm a rookie coach, you can look at it like, okay, I got to be ultra conservative because I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing and I'm winging it. Or you got to, swing for the fence. Like, listen, you guys aren't cutting it. I'm moving running back 3 to running back 1. You guys can battle out for running back 2 this week in practice. But you have to have the cachet in the building. And like I said, I know it's been a lot of coaches that had some terrible opening press conferences. Sirianni had a terrible one. What's the boy named? Gannon out in
Arizona, yeah.
Arizona had a terrible one. Steichen, like when I hear him talk, he's not very motivating either. And then this dude Cohen.
And we got
these terrible press conferences. Like I said, worked out for Dan Campbell, that kneecap biting stuff, but that's a little different.
Yeah, we got a touchdown for Auburn, so 31-17 Auburn, and Colorado is in the red zone as we speak. So now we switch over to college football since we're talking about a little bit of college. So I'm going to just go ahead and get this out the way because this might be the only time I get to do this weekend. So Bama's coming into Tallahassee tomorrow. The good news for Florida State is we might get some rain down in Tallahassee. They are starting a quarterback for the first time, Ty Simpson. They're bringing that onto the road. They're missing their best running back. They're probably missing one of their best defensive linemen, Tim Keenan. So there's some things going in Florida State's favor, but the game ain't going to go in Florida State's favor. So
I'm looking at something here.
People keep on.
I know what you see internet, but hold on real quick. I'm looking at something. I'm looking at the win probability.
Okay.
What do you think it says on this percentage scale? 100%.
I would say 40%.
You would be wrong. Win probability 84% for Bama.
Oh, you said win. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the weather. I thought you said win.
No. Oh, win, like victory probability.
Oh, okay. No, I would have probably said probably said closer to 90. Like I would have probably said like 89%.
Okay. So long as I mean you're on.
No, I'm being honest about it. Like so this is the thing. So Bama, it's year 2 of Kalen DeBoer installing that system, and you know how I feel about Kalen DeBoer. You always talk about Ryan Day's record. Kalen DeBoer's record as a head coach is 113-16. And guess what? When he took Washington to the national title game, that was year 2. So he got Ryan Grubb back. Ryan Grubb tried a year in the NFL with Seattle, figured like, this is different. So he went back.
Defense is too good. I think some of this where my plays are going to work.
Yeah, and when we did our SEC preview, don't forget I picked Alabama to win the national title.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I thought the difference was going to be that their defense is going to be a lot better than it was last year. They got some more experience. My guy Keon Saab back there, Saab. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm not going to be the delusional fan. You know what I'm saying? So Florida State also is bringing in 50 new players, just about, and that's not me exaggerating. You know what I mean? That includes the quarterback. That includes both 1 and 2 receiver, Squirrel White and Deuce Robinson. I like both of them. You know what I mean? And
something
I think
about the nickname Squirrel is hilarious. I got a cousin named Squirrel.
And I think Florida State's going to make plays. Like, I think Florida State is going to score on Bama. The problem is the people that are trying to sell this game because it's going to be on their station and everything, and they're like, hey, this, and they're trying to bring up Gus Malzahn because he's Florida State's offensive coordinator, and he had success against Alabama when he was the head coach at Auburn and the offensive coordinator at Auburn, but he had Cam Newton for some of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and Nick Marshall went for 500, but guess what? That was Nick Saban, and that was 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So this is a whole different team, whole different staff.
Cam Newton was Superman in college.
Yeah, none of that stuff matters right now. None of that stuff is going to give you insight into this game going down tomorrow. Florida State's chance is that they have to establish the run. They have to be able to push Bama around, which I just don't think they can do. But that's their chance. That's their window because Castellanos will be able to get a few yards running the football, but he's not going to Michael Vick this thing. And he's been running his mouth. So Bama been licking their chops waiting for a chance at him.
Just it's no need to do that because when you're the underdog, you have to put the pressure on with your play. No one on Alabama is going to be like, let's take Florida State lightly and just kind of stroll in there. They're going to come ready to play.
You know why Florida State won't win this game? My bad. The main reason Florida State won't win this game is the transfer portal exists. Because 2 years ago, if you remember, Florida State went 13-1 or 13-0 before the bowl game. Bama was the team that got in at number 4. So if there was no transfer portal, you could say, hey, these are the guys that kept you out of the playoffs.
Yeah,
but all those dudes are in the NFL, they're graduated, or they're on other
coaches
teams.
Are gone. Coaches are gone. Commentators are gone.
That don't work. But
offices have been remodeled.
I do like Tony White, the defensive coordinator. I don't know how I like a 3-3-5 against Bama, but I know that he's worth the money that we're paying him to be defensive coordinator. So I think the game is going to be closer than people think. The spread is 13.5, but I've been hearing a lot of people basically pick Bama by 17 and up. I think Florida State will score. They're just not going to score enough. So I'm looking at something along the lines of, let's call it 37-24. So right in that range of the spread.
I like it. I mean, it's always difficult to judge like these games because there's no preseason. Like they have the spring game and then they probably have some pretty full contact practices. But as far as like the speed of the game, quarterbacks probably haven't been hit since last season. Like they probably haven't taken a shoulder pad to any part of their body for months. Maybe some drills where they're kind of running through, but for the most part, these guys have been upright, clean. So the first time Castellanos runs with the ball and he gets rocked, does that rattle him? Does that invigorate him? Does that get him going? Is Ty Simpson ready to put up Michael Penix like numbers for Bama? I mean, they have the weapons, so it's just a matter of like who's going to be ready to play when the lights are the brightest, the proverbial lights are the brightest. Because these early games when you're playing these blue bloods, if you aren't ready, it can get out of hand super quick. Especially if Bama jumps on them and the crowd just kind of just goes away, and you feel like you're in your home team. It's gonna be plenty of Bama fans there, and that's all you hear. I think that could just really compound the impact, especially if a lot of these guys were there last year, or if guys transferred in from another school that was less prestigious than Florida State, and they come there and like, we get my ass again. I should have just stayed at Toledo, or I should have stayed at Akron, or I should have stayed at Tulsa. Like, why am I here getting his ass whooping? I think that could be tough.
And after, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, because I go to the Alamo Dome and I watch UTSA, and the crowd's right on top of you and everything, even though it's not necessarily a big crowd. FSU doesn't play in a dome. So they did these renovations to their stadium. They took 13,000 seats out. So I don't know if that's a good thing where the fans are more on top of you or whatever, or, if you want the bigger crowd. But this is a quarterback making his first start. So, I mean, you just don't know how that's going to go. It might take Bama a quarter or two just to get into the swing. So, but I'm going
6
Bama.
or 7 handoffs in a row, and then the 8th play is going to be play action.
Yeah. And then the game of the day tomorrow. 2 Tigers, 2 Death Valleys, rematch from the 2020 national title game. 2 quarterbacks that are going to be in the Heisman conversation all year. 2 teams that are going to be trendy picks to be national champion. LSU at Clemson. So I've been trying to dissect this game, from every angle that I could think of. You know what I mean? And when we did our ACC preview, Clemson was sort of the Denver Broncos of college football last year, where they beat everybody that they were supposed to, but when they met anybody that had a pulse, they got punked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether it was Louisville, they almost lost that game to SMU. They got 34-3 by Georgia to start the season last year.
Yeah, that wasn't a good look.
Yeah, and I mean, it was 6-3 at halftime, and then so LSU comes in, 5 straight losses in season openers. Brian Kelly needs this game in the worst way, the same way I was talking about how Sark needs the win at Ohio State. But Clemson, for me, the game plan is simple. Let me go ahead and preface this with a pause. Spread them out. Spread them out. Harold Perkins coming back off an injury. He's not a cover guy. He's just going to be on your quarterback's face most of the game. Yeah. Spread him out. Make him make decisions. Make him hesitate for a quick second. But you got Weeks back there too. He can cover. So watch out for him. Yeah. Clemson has questions. Who's going to be the running back? They might play 4 running backs tomorrow, including one that was a wide receiver. I got Ohio State too, Mike. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Ohio State. But Kate Klubnik doesn't turn the ball over. I think LSU is going to need turnovers to win this game. He had 6 for the whole season last year. LSU breaking in 3 or 4 new offensive linemen. So if this game was played in October, if this game was played late September, if this game was played in November, I might be more prone to lean LSU. But you got Peter Woods and TJ Parker coming after Nussmeier, and Nussmeier will get real gun crazy and trigger happy.
He slings the rock around, a little Favre-ish. I remember he came in a couple of games for like Jaden Daniels when he got knocked out of games. Mm-hmm. I mean, he didn't play like a backup. He plays like a starter. He moved like a starter. So I think he's on like the short list for like the Heisman watch or potential #1 overall pick, considering Arch may not declare for the draft or not. So, I mean, it's a lot of pressure. But when you look around at the weapons that LSU has, I just feel like I don't trust Brian Kelly. I just think down the road, Brian Kelly is going to cost them games. here, there.
Yeah, I don't have them in my playoff.
Yeah, I don't have them either. So they'll end up like 9-3 somehow, and just like it's not a good looking 9-3. Like they'll have a couple bad losses.
Yeah, Bama's going to stop them. Yeah, so on.
Yeah, but I remember like the same right criticism we had last year. Like you guys got to have some more skill players, like some more like elite skill players on Clemson's side. I do have Clemson in the playoff, but that's because I have them winning the ACC. So I think tomorrow I'm gonna take the home team. So yeah, I'm gonna take Clemson. Just because it's at home, I'm pretty sure like the talent matchup. I have to give the coaching edge to Clemson. I just like Dabo swag a little bit more. I like the home field advantage there. I don't think it's gonna be like the way I was talking about Florida State, where one team just quiets the crowd. I don't think LSU is gonna quiet Clemson. I think it's gonna be a back and forth. Take your haymaker, you throw your punch. I'm gonna throw my jab. I'm gonna throw my hook. It's gonna be a back and forth game where I just feel like
I'm going Clemson by 2 of them things.
Yeah,
2 of them things. Like I think you're gonna hear, and we're ready for kickoff. You're gonna blink, go take a piss, and it's gonna be 14-3.
Clemson that quick. Hey, listen, you're the college football guy, so
they got these wide receivers that LSU just can't cover. Like I brought up the offensive line issues that LSU is going to have, and that's going to take a minute to work in. That's why I said if the game was later in the season, but I'm not saying that it's going to be bad all game long, but I just think it's going to take a quarter or two. It's the first game of the season, and we know that the defenses are always just a little bit ahead of the offense. I do like Blake Baker, LSU's defensive coordinator, but I also like Tom Allen, who was Penn State's defensive coordinator, now Clemson's defensive coordinator. I'm trusting Cade because he doesn't turn the ball over versus what we talked about with Nussmeier.
Yeah, number one dual threat guy out of his class. So yeah, he's a playmaker.
And I got questions about Nussmeier's knee. There were some reports that came out a couple of weeks ago. People were freaking out thinking that he was hurt. He was walking around a little funny. Like, obviously, it wasn't a serious injury. But let's see you now with this pressure. But here's the question of all questions. What happens if LSU strikes first? You know what I mean? Like, because Clemson, we talked about it, right? Whenever they met a team that could match them or that wasn't afraid of them, they folded. So if LSU jumps out, say 10-3, you know what I'm saying? Is Clemson gonna?
Yeah, I just like I think that's where the home field advantage comes in. I think you can look around and see all the purple and orange and just kind of breathe. Because even if it's a bunch of LSU fans, they're not going to outnumber the Clemson fans at all. It's gonna be some purple and gold sections,
and it's at nighttime too.
It's at night. Under the lights, 100,000 fans. So I think that will settle them down. I think, and like I said, Dabo's been there for so long that it's just, I don't see them getting rattled.
And that's why, to your point, if it was in the other Death Valley,
I probably would lean.
I probably would have picked LSU. You know what I mean? So I do think that these teams are close in talent. Obviously, I just think that Clemson has the continuity that LSU is lacking at this point, so
we talk about the NBA, like the role players play better at home and they get rattled on the road.
So if they play in January during the playoff, I'll probably pick LSU. You know what I'm saying? But as we are today,
game will probably be in Atlanta or something like that, or more likely because it's LSU, they'll get him in a bracket where that game's in New Orleans.
Yeah, and I know you already upset that Atlanta getting these 2 games this weekend. Saying Tennessee, Syracuse tomorrow, and then South Carolina, Virginia Tech on Sunday.
Logically, it doesn't make any sense to me. You're opening the college football season, and those teams don't need to play in Atlanta. If it was Oregon versus Tennessee, and you want to put it on a big stage in a neutral place in the middle, like, hey, we're going to meet in the middle, and they played at Mile High, like they played in Denver or something like that.
Yeah,
I kind of get that.
But you got 2 teams
from down south playing in a different down south location. Like, that's silly to me.
I'm about to send a message to Roger Goodell. I want the Bengals and the Browns at the Horseshoe.
That's like I said, if they had Ohio State playing Penn
USC.
State.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, in Cincinnati Stadium. Like for what?
Yeah.
The one in Ohio State Stadium is probably better than the Cincinnati Professional Stadium anyway.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So then real quick before we get out of here, you know what I'm saying? Extra, read all about it. Got your upsets. Ding, 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 ding. So, all right. so Mississippi State, I like you this year. I think you're going to give Tennessee a hell of a battle down in Starkville in a couple of weeks. Problem is you got to go to Hattiesburg this weekend, where Southern Miss has been waiting to get a piece of y'all or Ole Miss. They got Coach Charles Huff. You know, remember him? We talked about it. He took Marshall's whole team that won the Sun Belt and said, let's go to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So I think 14 is just a little bit too much. Just a little bit too much. Like maybe 10, maybe 9.5. I think 14 is a little too much. So I'm going to take Southern Miss to cover that. All right, Mr. Logical. Tarleton State stole my thunder because they're an FCS team that came up here and beat Army. And here I am. I was going to say Merrimack of FCS plus 6.5 against Kent State, who's won one game the last 2 years. You know what I'm saying? No action over there. So I'm going to take Merrimack to cover. All right. I've been waiting for this moment for like a year, Mr. Logical. Here it comes.
Yo, hold on real quick. Kent State is holding walk-on tryouts next week, by the way.
There you go.
So if you want to play college football,
hey, Merrimack might win that straight up. Like
they're literally holding walk-on tryouts. Like you will get a spot if you make the team. You probably will play Division I college football this year if you go to this tryout. I believe it's like next Thursday.
And this season is already nuts because in addition to Army, even though Kennesaw State is FBS now, you know what I'm saying, they lost to Wake Forest tonight 10-9. You know what I'm saying? So wild things are happening. You know, Auburn is up 31-24. Colorado with the ball with about 3:50 left. Tied game. All right, so then continuing the upsets, I've been waiting for at least 6 months to this word. Out on the Palouse. The Idaho Vandals are coming in to play Washington State. It's a rivalry, actually, even though one of them is FCS and the other one's FBS. They hate each other, you know, over in Moscow, not Moscow, Moscow, Idaho. They're coming over
pretty close. I think they're like 13 miles.
Yeah. Yep. And the spread is 13.5. And I go back to Idaho holding that halftime lead against Oregon last year. You know, I go back to they're sharing a conference with the Montana schools, and that's the only reason why, you know, they're not winning a conference this year. So I'm going Idaho to cover. I'm not calling an upset here, but I got my eye on Iowa State. I want to see how they look against South Dakota, you know, back on the time zone and everything coming back from Ireland. I want to see how that looks. I also want to see Oregon versus Montana State tomorrow because I like Dante Moore, but I think he needs some time. And, oh, by the way, Montana State was the runner-up that lost the national title game by 3 to North Dakota State last year. I ain't calling the upset. Just keep your eye on it. It. You know, Oregon and Cal. You know, I was going to pick an upset, but then I learned that Oregon State is favored. So I can't even pick the upset. Oregon State just going to win. You know what I'm saying? But I got to watch that game so I can learn how to say Cal's quarterback's name because I don't know how to say it. And, you know, Evan Brown, who transferred in from Ohio State, I thought was going to get the job. He didn't get the job. But back to upsets. So let me give you some straight up upsets, some actual upsets. You know, Fresno State over Georgia Southern. And for those of y'all not tracking out there, yes, Clay Helton is still the coach at Georgia Southern. And the coach at Fresno State, Matt Entz, head coach of national champion North Dakota State last year. And then my last upset, straight up, give me Toledo going down to Kroger Field down in Lexington and beating up on some Kentucky Wildcats. And keep your eye out on Toledo because they're going to be a team that I might bring up in November. And I'm going to go, if they played in another conference besides the MAC, they would be in the playoffs. Because they're probably going to go 11-1 or 12-0. But they're in the MAC. So, you know, and
they're going to get a nice Meineke Car Care Bowl December 26th.
And part of the reason that I brought that up is because if they do beat Kentucky tomorrow, the only other place they might get a loss is out on the Palouse. Middle of the season. But y'all, thank you for joining us. We love y'all so much. He is the world-renowned, world-famous, cool, calm, and collected, Mr. Logical. Please, I beg of you, don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
And I am your unorthodox statistician coming to you live from the Alamo. I go by the name of 25. This is Sports Reports is Ordered. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things.
Shout out JR for the beat.
Shout out.
Appreciate, people looking out for people. Just somebody hit me up. It's my man cousin. We partied down in Mexico together last year. And he's like, you know what? I like what you're doing over there. Here's something. Like you said, do all the good things, do all the free things. Looking out for people. Look out for collabs. You know what I mean? Sports Reports Order, we're spreading out. We're going coast to coast. So look out for that. We got a couple of things in the pipeline brewing right now. So shout out to a couple of the podcasters. When we get all information together, we're going to start sharing information. We're going to start sharing ours. We're going to have real quality conversations surrounding sports. Everything has to be an argument. But when we do argue, just remember, bring facts. Leave your feelings. Because I'm going to hurt your feelings with the facts.
And you know
That's
what?
all I'm saying. Don't be mad at me. Don't be trying to block me. Don't be looking up other Rutleys on the internet trying to get at. No. Trust me. Bring the facts, and we're all good. We don't have to agree, but you got to give me some facts.
And guess what? Facts are free, too. You know what I'm saying? Let's get it. So we'll see y'all on Tuesday when we're back talking about the AFC North. The AFC North. There is no
Rookie of the Year.
There is no defense. There is no defense for the Bengals defense. You know what I'm saying? Let's get it.
Reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chasing, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout. Mic check, lights flash, game time, stay ready. 2 vets in the zone, keep the pressure real heavy.
Enjoy your football, y'all.
Yeah, we breaking it down. Truth rings in your speakers, every word is the crown. From the north side hustle to that southern flame. Midwest grind, west coast of the game.